we probably get 10 times more fan mail about our score for MediEvil than anything else. So, pun firmly intended, it will be on our gravestone.
MediEvil's been the linchpin of everything that we've done, really. I mean, one of the first things that we ever did together, and something that's followed us throughout the entireties of our careers.
Bob and Barn is the amusing moniker for a couple of Cambridge-based composers, Paul Arnold and myself, Andrew Barnabas. We've been working together since 1996, and we first met at a games company here in Cambridge called Millennium Interactive. That company got bought by Sony in 1998, and we worked our way up. And yes, we worked together writing scores, and left Sony in 2001 and started Bob and Barn. I was technically the in-house composer, and Bob was employed as the second sound person, but not to do music at that point in time. He was originally doing other stuff, sound design, voice recording, and other such interesting some sound jobs, but not music. But he always wanted to do music. We knew that.
And I was also trained in that.
Yeah. But I just didn't want to let him. As far as I'm concerned, that was my world. Why would I want to get him involved in that? And so instead, he waited until I went away for a week on holiday, came in and wrote a track for a game which we were scoring at that point called MediEvil.
I didn't know whether they'd use it or not. I didn't know whether Barn had, spit feathers about it or not. I really didn't know. I just wanted to have a go because it was a really interesting brief.
The game aesthetically took its visual tones and comedic style and everything else a lot from Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, which is unlike anything he'd ever done before. So it was also the somewhat daunting task of trying to recreate the sound of a film score with a synth and a sampler.
I kind of just sat down and I wrote a waltz, I seem to remember, and it was very structurally very, very simple.
Came back and played it to me. I was initially like, "You've written a tune, how dare you? It's my area." But actually, the tune he wrote was really good. It totally fitted the game. In fact, it's actually a track which is featured on all 4 MediEvil games now. And that's where I realised, actually, this could be a really good thing. So we started collaborating from then on. Between the two of us, we're never going to write something that one of us individually would write. And and for me, that's a strength, largely because of our difference of either personality, taste in music, or our difference of approach. Well, as people, we're quite different people. He's a little bit more reserved, a bit quiet than me. I'm a little bit more in your face. I'm a little bit louder. In terms of our approaches, our backgrounds and our interests in music definitely play a big part here. I like my jazz, I like my funk, I like my disco. And Bob likes his rock music. So we have quite different tastes there. And in terms of the instruments we both played the piano, but then he played guitar and trumpet, whilst I played oboe and drums. So we covered various different areas of an orchestra. Well, up until doing these random interviews, I hadn't even considered the fact that MediEvil was what started us working together as a partnership. But what a great start, because it was the first time I've been asked to write music in an orchestral style. All of my scores for the previous 6-7 years for that were more traditional gaming styles. And so that in itself was a huge creative challenge. The fact that I was fortunately musically educated, as was Bob, it meant that we were a little bit more, it's slightly easier to allow us to try to analyse scores and what makes them tick. We realised it was a genre we loved doing, and so when the opportunity to do something like this came up, we jumped at it. MediEvil 2 happened in 2000. I again was trying to push for a live recording of this. Back in those days, live orchestral recording of games really wasn't the done thing. But we'd learnt so much from what we'd worked on MediEvil that the technology and the techniques we applied meant that MediEvil 2 sounded much more realistic. And so by the time Medieval Resurrection came around, for us it was 2004, we'd already had the opportunity to work and record a live orchestra with the same group, same team at Sony 2 years prior for that, for a game called Primal. So fortunately, from this perspective, this was a much easier sell. They even said to us, you know, we'll give you a contract with a live orchestra, and that'll be quite enticing. It was indeed true. The opportunity to realise the Medieval scores from 1998 with a live orchestra was going to be amazing, and it was an incredible experience.
The whole purpose of the live recording is that it's an interaction with human beings, and that's what you don't get with a computer.
And that was the last Medieval we thought was going to happen. It came out in 2005, so 15 years ago. When Medieval 2019, the PS4 remake came around, this was a creative wet dream, really, from that perspective. So to do the Medieval score how we'd always wanted to do it, was just an incredible opportunity to come back to.
This was a remake of the original game. It was clear that we needed to be faithful to the format of the original game. So what we ended up with was, you know, there was some freedom to orchestrate things slightly differently, to add melodies where melodies hadn't existed before, but essentially to keep it the same. And actually the biggest change was that we were going to make the score interactive rather than linear as it was before.
It was written in a way, because the game wasn't completed anyway about the point when we were writing it, we were literally writing music which we thought might fit a certain level. But you couldn't get any idea of pace or any idea of timing of the game. Once we got into the new Medieval, we had the same thing. We had to use the same piece of music, but the problem with that scenario is it doesn't reflect what's happening on screen at all. Whether the player is calmly walking through some beautiful scenery or getting his ass kicked. The music does not change to reflect that. And I thought this has always been a problem. This is why we need to do something to make it more interactive. During the recording process, we recorded an enormous amount of different material to allow the game to choose different bits of this music to play during the runtime. But there was still a bit interesting talk about pacing. Now, Bob had this wonderful idea. He said, why don't we do a spiccato layer?
Well, here we are in Blakeney recording the string overdubs for Medieval. So Steve, please take it away.
Spiccato is a certain style of playing predominantly used for the strings, where it's a very short playing, but very rhythmic playing. So we use this technique to add a layer of effectively rhythmic strings underneath all of the Medieval tracks to make them sound like they're much quicker.
It also meant that we could add something new to every track. They all had this extra layer on them, so it satisfied us from a creative standpoint, because it meant that, you know, we were doing something new everywhere. We love working in games, and even though we've had a bit of a hiatus from games over the last few years, we've focused more on TV and film. Working on this Medieval remaster has reminded us just how wonderful it is to work in video games. Medieval has probably been one of the most important projects to us over the years. It's a franchise we both cherish. It's a musical style we understand as well as anything we've ever worked on, and it's always a great privilege to get to revisit that world and work in that world again.